President Trump arrives in the UK on Tuesday, but will brand Britain benefit? US officials say more than $10 billion worth of deals covering energy and technology will be on the table at this week's state visit. Google has already announced a £5 billion investment in UK data centres, and Centrica announced a tie-up with a US nuclear energy company to build 20 small modular reactors to power data centres. British politicians hope the invitation to meet the King will help charm Trump into offering better trade terms for Britain. But is the strategy working? Jamie Lindsay is a UK equities analyst at Artemis. Jamie, Britain's big achievement here so far has been a 10% flat tariff. Has that made a big difference for British companies?
I think what's important to recognise when trade deals are announced is it often takes a very long time for the details to get ironed out and for the implementation to take place. But as we often see in financial markets, businesses and investment anticipates changes coming. There's not very little tangible evidence that Britain is selling meaningfully more to the States as a result of what has been announced so far. But as long-term investors in British businesses, we like any positive news that improves the prospects for the British economy and British businesses over the long term.
President Trump is bringing tech CEOs, including Nvidia's Jensen Huang and OpenAI's Sam Altman, who are promising investment in Britain's tech industry. Is that a significant positive, or is Britain's tech industry just lagging too far behind the US?
One unusual dynamic we've seen playing out over the last 18 months is that there's a greater trend towards capital flows being allocated via politics rather than purely by economics. And if our positive relationship with the States results in more investment in the UK, that is clearly a positive. But in the most fundamental senses, these investments will only happen if Britain is seen as an attractive place to invest. And the fact that these business leaders are coming suggests that they are positively inclined towards it.
Blackstone is one of several US private equity groups who've promised more investment in British companies. Is that a net positive, or is there a risk that the more US private equity and venture capital investment comes, the more that will dissuade companies from going to the public markets here in Britain?
At its core, the quantum of investment is the most important metric for deriving the future capacity of the UK economy and the future well-being of the British people. As public market investors whose assets are we largely manage money for British pensioners, we think it is good if the retirement of our end clients is aligned to the prospects of British businesses, and therefore we think that having publicly listed successful UK businesses is a good thing. But as I say, if capital is flowing here and investment is coming because Britain is open for business, that is good for the economy as well.
Another potential issue on the table is drug pricing. Several major drug companies, including Britain's biggest listed company, AstraZeneca, have been pulling investment in this country because they say Britain isn't willing to pay enough for drugs. We know President Trump wants other countries to pay more and lower drug prices in the US. Do you think drug companies will try and use this leverage and threats to move their drug development to the US to try and get the British government to pay more?
One of the areas where Britain has the greatest expertise and is certainly world leading is in its drug discovery and scientific capabilities. We have a long heritage of generating fantastic drugs through world-class science. And I believe that while businesses may try to use these dynamics as a lever to try and persuade Britain to do more and pay more, at its core, you want the best people developing drugs to achieve the best outcomes. And I don't think that that dynamic is changing.
Should UK investors be worried, though, about investment, particularly in pharma, moving to the US instead?
It's possible, but these investments and the investments that have been made over the last decade or so in the UK are extremely long duration. We have businesses who've invested hundreds of millions of pounds in R&D facilities and vaccine manufacturing facilities in the UK, and they just aren't just going to shut up shop.
More broadly, Jamie, do you think that Britain is attracting more foreign investment? I mean, for many years it was slightly unfashionable to not only American but many foreign investors.
I think the lens through which we view this is the type of deals that have been announced. It's not just deals announced with the USA, but the recent deal for Britain to build Type 26 frigates for Norway and a recently announced trade deal with India. All of these deals, in the grand scheme of things, are relatively small. But when you do a lot of them, they really start to add up and they will make a difference. And over the kind of time horizon that we have as investors, we just want to see as much as we possibly can, and we think it's a positive.
That was Jamie Lindsay of Artemis. Don't forget, you can watch more videos on Reuters.com.